Well, good evening, everyone, team. Let's start the session for today. Meanwhile, others can join parallelly. So, by yesterday's session, we have completed our payroll module team. And as part of the payroll, we have seen uh, different types of, I'm talking about what are the payroll processes that we have in the system. As part of the payroll transactions, we have seen team, like what are the pre-payroll processes that we have to run in the system, and then how to run the payroll, and then post-payroll processes, right? And before closing the session yesterday, I have also explained you how to define one of the standard earning element with the calculation rule of percentage of earnings team. Now today, we will be starting up a new concept in the Fusion application team that is called as fast formulas. So what is this fast formula is about, team? Why we require this concept of fast formula in the system? In which are all the modules this concept of fast formula is going to use? So when I talk about a fast formula, team, okay, this particular concept Oracle given in the system in order to maintain certain validations, okay, or conditions, okay, or in order to write certain calculation rules or logics. For this particular purpose, we have the concept of fast formulas in the system team. Okay, this comes under a technical part of the application, but usually if a person who is working in the project, if he is a functional consultant also, having a hands-on knowledge on this is something very much required, or usually companies currently looking on. Okay, so let us see that how to define that one thing. So the purpose of having the concept of fast formula is for what team? In order to write any validations or conditions, or in order to write the calculation rules or logics for processing in the system, we are going to use the concept of fast formula. In how many modules we are going to use the fast formula, team? In the modules like payroll, okay, absence management, and then in OTL, Oracle time and labor, in compensation, in benefits, okay, etc. In performance goals or talent modules, there will be very limited usability of fast formula, team. Only in the case of eligibility evaluations, okay, deriving the eligibility of the employees, or selecting the persons. So that is not required. It's not that important to discuss about that. Majorly in these modules, even in learn and in ORC modules also, at some of the places, like same again, in talent goals and performance, how we are going to use the fast formula at a very lower level. I mean, it's not required in fact in those areas, but still the usability of fast formula is there in those areas also. But major contribution in the system with respect to the fast formulas utilization are these modules, team. Preliminarily, if we have to discuss, in all these modules, we will be coming across the concept of fast formula. In payroll, absence, OTL, compensation, benefits, everywhere. If you take payroll, where you are going to use the fast formulas in payroll, team, first I am trying to make you understand at which are all the places in the system we are going to use this concept of fast formula. Then I will talk about what is the structure of the formula, what is the design of the formula, and some sample 1 or 2 formulas we will see, and we will try to execute them in the system. Okay. Now, coming to the payroll team. In payroll module, particularly, we are going to use this formula in the context of element calculation, okay, in the element calculation, and at the element input value validations. Some of them I'm writing, not everything, because we have 120 types of fast formulas available considering all the modules, team. But I'm writing down some of the key areas where we will be using. or at the element skip rule. Okay. In payroll module, we are going to use the concept of fast formula at the element calculation, element processing time. In the element processing calculation or element input value validation or element skip rule or element proration rule to maintain the proration in the system. Okay. In these areas, usually we will be using the concept of fast formula team. When I'm talking about payroll, element processing calculation team, what do you mean by that? Basically, whenever we creating any element in the system, it might be a standard earning, it might be a deduction, it might be a absence element or any kind of element you take, except information element, any type of element you define team. When the element gets created, the associated input values are getting triggered correctly with the calculation rule that we are selecting. It might be flat amount, days into rate, hours into rate, percentage of earnings, whatever the rule we selecting, based upon that, the element creation is happening. Correct. The associated input values of the element are created. At the same time, who told the system, let's say, these are the elements we processed for the employee team. Correct. What are our elements? Something called basic salary and two elements. Okay, let me write down here. In system, I have created two elements, correct? Basic salary, okay, SAD, and then I defined one more element called test housing allowance. For our employee salary test, these two elements we processed. So these two elements I defined under standard earnings with the calculation rule of flat amount. Or yesterday I have created one more element called other flexi elements. By using the percentage of earnings based upon these, that particular element is also getting calculated. But how the elements are outputting the results, where the rule defined that when we assign an element to the employee, whatever we feed in the amount input value, okay, that should be processed in the form of pay value as an output. Where that logic has been derived in the element level. For every element that you configuring team, the fast formula of that element will be created in the system. If you want, I can show you. Let me go to our element. Let me come to setup and maintenance. Okay. And let us go to our element that is workforce deployment. Let us go to our element. There is something which we define, test housing elements, let's say. I'm going to elements. Let me search with our element team. This is the element which we created, test housing elements. Now let me open the element. So once we go to, okay, once we go to the element, and then once we go to the status processing rule, here we can find the fast formula of that element team. So the rule that whatever we are feeding in the amount value field, that should be processed by this element in the form of pay value, that should be returning, is designed or is coming from this formula. Did I created this formula? No. When we defining the element in the system, automatically for each of the element, the fast formula will be created with the calculation rule that whatever we selecting at the time of element creation, that rule, based upon that, the formula will be created. So this is element processing calculation. We can go here and we can edit the formula and we can implement our new logic, whatever we want. That I will come in next half an hour. That is element processing calculation. Then element input value validation. What is that? I told you, right? Whenever we tagging the element to the employee in the system, we are feeding some value in that amount input value. Correct. We have at the input value level, there is something called validation formula. like minimum, maximum, what a HR can feed in that particular input value, something like that. Minimum 1,000, maximum 10,000, right? Anything that you are expecting a validation formula for your input value at the element level, then we can make use of fast formula that we will call it as element input value validation fast formula. Then element skip rule. I was telling, right? When we creating the element in the system, by default, there will be something called a skip rule coming up. Let me go to the main home screen of the element. Here, team, skip rule. So here also we can able to customize if we want to define any custom logic. That example I told you, skip concept. Consecutively 2 months employee taking overtime. Third month element should skip even the entry HR made to the employee. Some kind of validation with respect to element processing. So here also we have the fast formula in the context of payroll. Then element proration. So when we're defining the element, we are enabling the proration group, correcting. And there is something called proration formula. Like any mid of the month changes happen to the employee. According to that prorated value to be processed. So that purpose also we have the fast formula. So these are some of the areas where we can use the concept of fast formula in the payroll. Next, if you go to absence management team, everywhere when we configuring our absence module, let me go to quickly to the absence management screen. Let me go to quickly the absence management screen. Let me go to my client group and then let me go to absences. We defined our absence plans, absence types, everything, correcting. So let me go to any of the existing plan in the system. Let me go to absence plan, okay? Or else let me quickly create a new plan. Click on create, let's say. Let me pick up as of now accrual team. Just we are trying to understand where the utilization of fast formula is, for what purpose we have. See team, when we defining an absence plan, let me create something like test plan, something I'm giving. Unit of measure, LDG, something I'm giving, status active. Okay. And here only if you can notice there is something called conversion formula. So here conversion formula will be used when you creating an absence plan team, you are defining it in days. When you are assigning this plan to the type, okay, the type you are creating it in hours. So if you want to convert that unit of measure from plan to type, like from days to hours, leave will be providing in days, but employee applying in hours. So at the type level, you are configuring it in hours. So days to hours, some conversion factors you want to write. Then you can make use of conversion formula. Or if you go to the second tab, the participation tab team, you have something called enrollment start rule, enrollment end rule, correct? Let me go to participation tab. See here, enrollment start rule, enrollment end rule. Here, either with the formula, I can define my requirement, or without the formula also I can define. See, if I go with formula, there is something called start date. If I go with enrollment end rule, then also I have the formula team. What is that here? Let's say my client given me a requirement that, Kumar, whenever I'm hiring the employees in the system, as per the eligibility profile, the plan will enroll, correct? But let's say I want the enrollment to be something like hire date of the employee plus 6 days. Means on 7th day, I want the plan to be enrolled, because first 6 days, we will be having the background checks or something, whatever it might be. Example I'm taking team. My client requirement is this one. Today on March 1st, I'm hiring the employee team. Okay, actually, if I go with as of event here, as of event, if I go, what happens team? Today only the plan will enroll with effective of his hire date. March 1st onwards, the enrollment start date of the plan will trigger. But my client is telling what? Hire date plus 6 days. Means what? Though employee hiring with effective of 1st March, I want the plan enrollment should be happen to the employee with 7th March. 6 days or 7 days after the employee hire date. How can I achieve that one thing? I don't have any such logic to maintain. So I have to rely upon the formula. I have to write my logic. Or within that, my client is telling this is the logic only for the people who are working in in the company. Let's say our client is having a company called Tata Automobiles Private Limited. The two people who are working in North Business Unit and people who are working in sales department. Only for these fellows, this particular validation should work. Rest of all will have the regular enrollment start date with respect to hire. I have certain requirement of my client. Then I have to rely upon the formula, define the formula and attach the formula here for the plan. Same goes with enrollment end rule. By default, when the employee gets terminated in the system, the plan will automatically end it. But my client is telling, Kumar, I don't want the plan to end it with respect to employee termination. I want something 1 week later, the plan should terminate, end it. Then write a formula. We have the formula here, team. Or if you go to accruals, I have explained you how to define the accruals but without a formula. Either you can define here or you can make use of the matrix. Simply, rather than using the matrix, if you click on a formula, team, everything will lapse. See, accrual formula coming. Everything with respect to the plan, monthly accrual, yearly accrual, year-end carry forwarding, carry over, rollover. Okay, everything you can define in the formula, team. If not, so here also we can make use of fast formula, or if you are going with matrix also, everywhere you have the formula, team. Vesting rule. See, vesting rule, what we know already. If you give elapsed period, I can go with 3 months, something like that. But my client coming up with a requirement that, Kumar, I have a different elapsed period requirement. Means what? Coming to the elapsed period. Okay. People who are working in North Business Unit, okay, I have 3 months of elapsed period. People who are working in South Business Unit, I have 4 months of elapsed period. How can I achieve that requirement? What the plan is common to all the people of North and South. If I configure a vesting rule here, the elapsed period, 3 months. I'm sorry, I'm talking like vesting period, elapsed period. No, it's a vesting rule. Okay. Vesting rule. For one set of people, it should be 3 months. For one set of people, it should be 4 months. How can I achieve that? If I go with this, for all people, the same rule will come, 3 months. But my client is telling, for some business unit people, some sort of requirement, for another people, some sort of requirement. How? Then use a formula. Write that logic in your fast formula, vesting period formula, everywhere, team. Ceiling. That there also your client is not having a common requirement, is having some customized requirement. Then write a formula, annual accrual limits. You use a formula here. Carry over, you have a formula. Carry over provision or rollover formula. Or if you're not defining anything here, you are keeping it include in matrix, include in matrix, and include in matrix. Okay. You are not configuring here. You are writing your matrix, team. Even here, you have something called accrual formula. Rather than maintaining individually, you can define everything and you can write up in the formula. So there are many places in the system where Oracle given the provision to make use of the concept called fast formula. Where we are using, everywhere we will not use. Depending upon the client requirement for several things. If we are not able to achieve the requirement without a logic, I mean straightforward, if you are not able to achieve that requirement, then obviously we have to rely upon the fast formula and we have to write our conditions or validations, whatever we have to keep into. So with respect to payroll and absence, these are some of the places or usually most used places where the fast formula utilization is there, team. So first I have introducing to you where all you are going to use this concept of fast formula in the system. So by this point of time, we understood in payroll context or in absence context, at which are all the places we are going to use the formula, we have seen, team. Just give me a second, team. I will be back. Okay. Now, coming to the fast formulas. How to define the fast formula? What is the structure of the fast formula? We have to see, team. So let me go to the presentation, team. I mean, I have a soft copy of this fast formulas. So when I use a word fast formula, how that particular structure of the formula will be there, team. So Oracle fast formula is a simple way to write formulas using English words and basic mathematical functions. So if you have a prerequisite of, if you have a pre-understanding about the concept of SQL, then writing the fast formula will be easy to understand. Core SQL requirement is not, core SQL knowledge is not required, team. But if you have any basics within the SQL language or basic understanding of SQL, then you can be able to correlate that particular conditions or writing up the queries here, and you can learn the fast formula quickly, team. So it is a mix of English words and basic mathematical functions, team. So when I go to the fast formula usages, just now I covered, team, like in which are all the modules in the system this concept of fast formula will be used. That is what this slide is talking about. See, there are many formula types used for payroll, benefits, compensation, absence management, time and labor, and in HCM extracts, some of the places where we are going to use the fast formula, team. Then with context to the payroll, where we are going to use the fast formula in payroll. See, for element run results, for element calculation purpose, prorate payroll results for payroll proration purpose, or legislative checks in the payroll for the employee, or skip rule processing of the employee. Whatever I have listed, that only this slide is talking about. So this is about in payroll, where all the places we are using this formula. In benefits module, where we are going to use the fast formula for eligibility determination in that anyhow, that module is not our point of understanding. We are not seeing anyhow. Then if you take compensation, in compensation module, when we defining the workforce compensation plans, in that when we defining the worksheets, okay, or when we running the specific processes in the compensation module to select the population parameter in that, there also we are going to use the fast formula. So these slides talking about in which are all the modules where we are going to use the fast formula. See, in absence module for defining the accrual terms, carryover, vesting criteria. That is what I'm telling you. These all places, team. Right. So if you skip this particular slide, then we can go for fast formula types. So as I told you, team, we have more than 120 formula types available in Fusion HCM, team. What is the fast formula type? Each area in the module that you are looking at, let's say currently you are on accrual definition. This is one type of formula, team. Now I came to formula. When I'm coming to accrual formula, I'm clicking on the drop down here. Nothing is there. Why? Currently in this environment under Indian legislation, no formula related to this accrual type defined. So if you want a formula to show here, then you have to define under global absence accrual type. Or if you go to vesting rule and if you go to formula, here nothing is there. If you want to use a formula here, then there is a formula type for this, something called global absence vesting rule formula. Or if you are require a formula here to utilize for defining the ceiling rule, then there is one formula type for ceiling rule. Then one formula type for annual accrual limit, one formula type for carryover, for rollover, for accrual matrix. Everywhere in the system, across the modules you take, whatever the fast formula that you are going to use for that particular object, we have a specific type in that particular, in the application team. In that way, if you see, we have total 120 formula types or more than 120 formula types available in Fusion HCM team. So if you take payroll, so this is element processing calculation. This is Oracle payroll type. Then this is element input value type. This is skip rule type. This is proration type. Like that, everywhere where we are using the formula, each of the place we will have one formula type to choose team. I'm creating a formula for my accrual definition team. If I create under vesting type, that is of no use. That is of no use. I have to create a formula under the type of vesting rule. Then only it will show me here. I want a formula for vesting, but I created under ceiling. Then it won't show here. It will show under ceiling, right? So we have to select the appropriate type, okay, when we defining the fast formula team. These are some of the types of formulas available team. We can check them in the system also, not even in this slide. We can check them. What are the types that are available in the system? I'm going to show you next 5 minutes team. Then within the fast formula, when we talk about the creation methods, how we have to define the fast formula team, we can say the creation can be happened in 3 ways. One is predefined, means what team? With specific to localization. For example, you take payroll. In payroll, are we defining any tax elements in the system? No. Already Oracle predefinedly delivered all the tax related elements team. The formulas, their calculation rules, logics, did we define? Nothing. So they are predefined, delivered with Oracle HCM, specific to localization. Cannot and we should not modify any Oracle delivered formulas for any elements in the system. They are predefined. That is of one type. Then we have something called a user defined. This is what we customly define for fast formula. For example, for any of the element, your client expecting some input validation. That is what team? That is not by default given by Oracle in the system. It's we as the users in the system, as part of our client requirement, we are going to configure that particular validation. So whatever we define in the application, we can call them as user defined fast formulas. Predefined means whatever Oracle delivered formulas in the system for different standardized elements. User defined means whatever we as a user in the system defining as per our client business requirement. Then we have something called generated. System generated means what? Fast formulas by default, what system is generating with respective to the tasks that we are configuring to. What is that? Perfect example is what? Element creation. See, whenever we creating an element in the system, the moment we create the element, automatically system creating or generating the fast formula to that element based upon the calculation rule we selecting. That we can call it as system generated. User setup and system generated form. Okay. Perfect example would be element templates generating the fast formula for main and hidden elements. So that will be system generated formulas team. So these are the 3 creation methods within the formula, how the fast formulas in the system will be generated. So if I go to fast formula levels, that all I will explain them within the system team rather than going it in the presentation. So now I want to go to a formula and fast formulas and I want to configure thing. First, we will talk about the formula with respective to the payroll. Now I will give you a requirement and we will configure a requirement for that. What is that team? Okay. 2 elements we defined for our client. What are these? Basic salary, SCAD, test housing allowance. Okay. And other flexi allowance is also there. So these are the 3 elements currently we defined in the system, correct team, and which we processed to our employee yesterday. Now, basic and housing, directly we are capturing at the employee level because these 2 elements I defined under the rule of flattening. Other flexi elements I defined yesterday with the rule of percentage of earnings. And I added these 2 are the contributors to this element. Okay. Now my client is telling, Kumar, I have an element called something called transport allowance. Let's assume as of now the requirement team. There is an element called transport allowance. What is the calculation rule of this element? Basically, these all elements we are configuring under our LDG what? SA legislative data group. My client is having two legal entities team. One is SA legal entity. One is SA legal entity. And other one is, there is something here called global KSAL. Let's assume the requirement as of now. So my client is having two legal entities, both are in the country of Saudi only. For both of them, the same LDG we map a team because they are both in same country. Let's assume the requirement now. So whenever we defining the elements under the LDG, obviously the same elements I can use for both the legal employer employees, correct? Basic, test, housing, other transport. Coming to the transport allowance, my client is telling, Kumar, if the employee, legal employer, if I'm writing the requirements, if employee, legal employer, okay, is equal to SA legal entity, means what team? If employee is from this legal entity, then the transport allowance of the employee should be calculating from basic salary of the employee, 20 or let's say 10% of basic salary. Okay. Else if employee is from employee, legal employer is equal to this global KSAL. There is another legal entity. Then transport allowance is equal to team. Transport allowance is equal to team. Basic, 5% of basic and housing of the employee. Now tell me, how can I achieve this requirement? Transport allowance I'm going to configure in the system. Okay. Now I cannot make use of any percentage of earnings rule because the requirement is different. The same element I'm going to assign to the employees of two of the legal employers. If system should check when I'm processing the element to the employee, if employee is from legal entity SA, then transport allowance is equal to 10% of basic. Else, if employee is from this legal employer, then transport allowance is equal to 5% of basic and housing together. Then how I can achieve this requirement? My standardized element creation will not suffice my requirement. Correct team? Two legal entities logic is there. There is something here. Employee is from this, then this is the rule. Employee is from this company, then this is the rule. Because for both the employees, both the legal entity employees, the same element, because they are part of same LDG. How you will do? You have to customize your fast formula logic. You have to implement this logic in your fast formula of this transport allowance team. You create it with any rule, either with flat amount, percent of earnings, anything. Whatever the rule you select, you take. When the fast formula generated team, within the fast formula, this calculation rule you are going to insert in that team. Now what I will do is, first I will try to create one element in the system. Okay. The requirement, I hope everyone understood. Now I'm trying to create an element in the system. Let me go to setup and maintenance. Let me go to element. Okay, element. Then let me quickly create one element team that is under our legislative data group, the same standard earning element, which is of standard type. What is that name of the element team? Let's say I will define transport allowance SAD. We are using this for every element, right? So let me use this one. So by default, today's date it is taking. Let me give 151. Okay, we know all these things. I'm quickly configuring all these things. Click on next. Okay. Okay, I'm writing, I'm creating the formula with a flat amount rule. That's okay. Okay. Then proration, retro, you can enable all these things. Okay. Click on next. Submit. Now I'm defining one of the element called transport elements with a standard earning classification type with a rule of flat amount. Okay. Now what happens, team? This element will create with a rule of flat amount. Means what? I can assign this element to the employee, and as a HR, I can manually input some value in that amount input value. But that is not my requirement. My client is telling it should automatically process from the basic and housing, the percentage should be considered for the output of transport. Now let us see how I will be using the formula in the element. We can understand how to use that thing. Let the element get created in the system so that we can find the fast formula of the element is getting created thing. Right team? Now the element created. Let me quickly create the eligibility also, because I want to tag this element to the employee also. Then TA eligibility, I'm giving something, all payrolls eligible. Okay. Now come to the status processing rule of this element. There is something called SPR. Come here, select that one. Now see team, the fast formula resulted here. Transport allowance SAD earnings. Now where I have to go in order to edit this formula or customize this formula? Go to the application. Okay, let me duplicate the tab. And we are having a specific task available to go to the fast formula team. Go to setup and maintenance and search with a task called fast formula. Workforce deployment and search with a task called fast formula. This is the task team. Go here, then scope you can set up anyhow that you know. I'm going to the fast formula team. Now here I can search. What is the formula? Transport allowance SAD. So whatever the formulas that are available in the system, it might be a seeded Oracle delivered formula for our tax elements, or when we defining the elements, whatever the formulas that system generated, or whatever the custom formulas as a user that we are defining in absence, compensation, benefits, payroll, any module. Every formula in the system with respective to any module, you can able to search from here team. Now I am searching with the name of transport allowance SAD earnings. LDG, keep it SA because your element is in that LDG team. Click on search. You can see the element resulting here. See, this is the element team. And you can see the element type. By default, whatever the fast formulas that are created with respective to the element team, that will be created under the type of Oracle payroll. The type of the formula for this is, when the element gets created, the element fast formula will be created under the type of Oracle payroll. Now you can click on this one, then you will land upon editing of that formula team. So this is the fast formula screen. Now I'm on this particular transport allowance SAD earnings formula. Type is Oracle payroll. Under this LDG, the formula is available. Who created this formula? System generating. When we're defining the element with respective to the calculation group. Ultimately, whatever the system generated formula is there, if you want to customize this one, you have a scope to do that one team. Edit, click on correct, then entire screen will become editable. Okay, see, everything is editable. You can remove, you can whatever to say, do the customization of logic, whatever it is, and you can. Now before doing that, let us understand the structure of the formula team. Fast formula is having a certain structure. What is that team? Let me go to my notepad here. So this is the fast formula structure team. We have at the top defaulting of database items and input values, then input statements initialization, then any alias statements are there, we can initialize the alias statements, and then initializing the local variable, then formula logic section, and finally return section, what the formula is going to return. So this is what the structure of the fast formula team. This is the structure of the fast formula team. Very first is what? Defaulting of database item. Let me go to the spreadsheet now. So when we talk about structure of fast formula, okay. So what do you mean by defaulting of database item team? The very first section is what? Defaulting of database items and input. So what is a database item basically calls? I mean, what is this meant by database item or input state inputs? Huh? Database item is nothing but team.
Database table.
Exactly. Whatever the information that we are capturing in the system with respective to employee, with respective to organizations, or whatever we configured so far, team, everything will be stored in the system database tables. There will be a database for the application team. So whatever the configurations we are doing, in which are all the attributes or the fields, the data we are capturing, everything will be stored in specific table, in specific column on the specific attribute. That are called as database items team. In fast formula, database items are going to play a very crucial role because I have to get the information of employee legal entity. I'm telling that if employee legal employer is equal to this one, how I know employee is from which legal entity? Where that legal entity information will be stored in the system? I have to get the DBA items team. Let me go to the screen here. So when I talk about a database item, one of the example you can check here. See, database item is a code that points to a particular value in the database team. For example, we have something here called per ASD assignment status type. That is a database item which will be storing employee assignment status team. Like in the front end, when I go to any employee record team, let's suppose if I go to person management and search for an employee. Let me go to my client group, person management. And let me search with any employee. Let's say, let us search with our employee only, whom we are doing the transactions. Let me open that. So at the employee assignment level, I will be capturing the assignment status information of the employee. Correct? Here on the employment level at the assignment, see the assignment status. Let's suppose I want to use this information about the employee in my fast formula logic. Then how I can get this information, the assignment status details in the formula. This information, when we hiring an employee, whatever we are capturing team, every attribute will be stored in specific tables team. So this assignment status information will be stored in a table called per all assignments F. Let's suppose if you take an example of assignment status, it will be stored in per all assignments F table in the column of assignment status type. And in order to get that particular attribute information, the DBA item that Oracle given is what in per ASD assignment status type. For every attribute in the system, I'm not, one second, just. Yes, sorry, team. So I'm not talking about only the employee assignment level information team. across the system, any page you take up, any information team, any attribute level details if you want to fetch, okay, that can be get from the database tables. We have a table where that information will be stored. So Oracle given us a very flexibility in the utilization of Fast Formula team. We don't need to write any query to fetch any information in Fast Formula. Ready-made database items Oracle given in the system for each and every attribute information to fetch. You have to know what is that DBA name in order to use in your Fast Formula logic team. That's all. For that, we have a document available, which I'm going to share, like what are all the database items across the modules available. Let's say there is something called ASG date form. This will store the date from which this assignment information is effective. Or ASG employment category. This database item will store employment category of the assignment of the employee. Like that, every DBA item and what it will store in the system with respective to employee team. Everything we have. Let's say I want to use employee payroll information in my Fast Formula. Then I have to use the database item called ASG payroll. Okay, that store employee payroll. So we have the database items that Oracle by default delivers in the system. You don't need to write any SQL or any query to fetch any information from any table team. Already they are readily available. One of the example of DBA item you can see. For assignment status information, I have a DBA available called per ASG assignment status type, which will store in this particular table in this column team. When I talk about database items, again, we have two types of database items in the system. One is static database and the other one is dynamic. What do you mean by static database item team? Static database items are predefined, which are capturable in the system. They include standard types of information team, such as gender, birth date, work location of an employee, start date, end date, or marital status. Whatever the information that we are capturing at the employee level team, all these are static, right? I mean, when we hiring the employee, all these information we are going to capture. Even if you go to manage person, with respect to the employee, we will capture the employee name, details, address, marital status, highest education, religion, gender. These all are what team? These all are the capturable information when we hiring the employee team. So these all types of database items, we can call it as static in the system. Whereas dynamic is what team? Dynamic database items are created automatically when you define. For example, elements. I define an element called transportation elements team. I got all the input values with respect to the calculation rule. Each and every input value of the element will be created as a database item. See, by default, create a database item. So these are what team? Creatable. Depending upon the task we performed, system generated according to that task. They are dynamically created in the system with respect to some setup that we are doing. Perfect example is at the element level team. Every input value of the element will be a database item. They are called as a dynamic database item team. Okay. So when you create an element in the system, automatically all the input values are created team. But how you will identify team? See, elements and input values. Element and input value name are DBA name prefix. For example, I want to get this particular transport allowance SAD information team. That too, whatever we are capturing in the amount field. Then I can come and I can search here with the name starting with transport allowance SAD underscore amount. Okay. I mean, there is a format which basically system follow. Element and input value name, that are the DBA prefix. For example, for one of the element in the system, fast salary amount entry value. This is the DBA item key. So there is a format which Oracle follow with respect to the element input stream. Element name followed by input value will be the DBA name in the system when you are going to search for the DBA stream. So these are mostly or importantly or mandatorily used concept in the formula team. And then we have something called input statements in the formula. What do you mean by inputs team? Whatever the element level input values you are having team. If an element want to process in the system, we have to feed that values correctly. That we can call it as inputs in the fast formula team. So the very first step will be team in the fast formula. We have to default that database items and the input values in the system. What are the DBA items and inputs we are going to use in the fast formula logic? Ultimately, here we are going to build our logic team. So whatever we are going to use the DBA items or input values of the elements or whatever, we have to default with respect to value. What do you mean by default? Let me go to the one of the fast formula here team. So this is one of the fast formula which we are going to configure now for our transport elements team. Okay. So the structure you can see starting from row 16, database item default. I told right, first one is what? Defaulting of database items and inputs. So this is the first section. When you writing a formula team in the system, as you know, in our basic SQL also, anything that you keep between these symbols, this we will call it as comment section. Comment section means what team? This will not execute in the formula. When you are running any payroll to an employee, when this formula is getting executed in the backend, nothing from this comment out section, like see slash star, then star followed by slash. This we will call it as comment section, comment out. I mean, if you keep any information between these two symbols team, that is just for information in the formula. It will not execute when we are processing the payroll to the employee when the formula is running in the backend team. So here just I am giving the description details team, something like what is this formula is about. It is not mandatory, but just I am giving something like this. Like this is about a transport allowance salary formula. Okay, type is of Oracle payroll, and then who is the consultant working on everything you can write. Something like, see, I'm removing it, something, formula results. So it is going to fetch 25% of basic, okay, or whatever that you are going to write your logic here. Or let's say it is going to fetch 10% of basic salary, okay, if employee is from SA legal entity, and 5% of basic and housing if employee is from global, what is that another legal entity I put here? Global KSAL. So this is just for information purpose team. And who is the consultant working, who created this formula? So I'm writing my name. These are not mandatory. Just by looking at the description section, anyone can understand, okay, this formula built based upon this particular requirement of the client or particular logic of the client, something. So anything that you place between these two comment out things, okay, then it will be not executed in the formula team. That is what anytime if you are using this symbol of comment out. So we have something here called comment section that you can also find here. See, so that starts with this one slash star and then followed by star slash. That is the comment section team. So just it is for information purpose. So you can ignore this one team. Our actual formula starts from here. So I have given the separate heading also that I have kept again in the comment section, basically. I mean, comment out marks, so that it won't execute, just a description or a heading. Now here actual our formula starts team. Defaulting of database items. Whatever the DBA items in the formula you are expecting to use, the input value, okay, database items or not, and input value defaults. Both database item and input values, whatever you are going to use in your formula execution team, that all we have to default first of all. What do you mean by defaulting the database item team? See, I'm going to use these database items in my formula logic team. So here my formula logic starting here. For example, there is a DBA item called per legal employer name. That per legal employer name will store the legal entity information in the system. You can even search at the Fast Formula level only team. You have a database item section. Come here, search with database item name, and I'm searching with per legal employer name. Let's say if I give a search, I can know that DB item is going to store what? It is going to store legal employer name. So I'm using a database item called per legal employer name, okay, which will store the employee legal employer details, because my condition is what? I have to get the details of employee legal employer information, these two information things. Now I'm defaulting it with some value team. What do you mean by that one? In the application, when the formula is executing for an employee, if system didn't find any value with respect to the employee, that legal employer details team, then whatever you are defaulting, that value will process in the formula. Okay. Or let's say this is legal employer name. Anyhow, legal employer by default will be there. There is no excuse or no chance, because while hiring, we have to mandatorily give. For example, we will take this database item team. So this is basic salary test SAD amount assignment entry value. This is the database item of our basic salary element team. Okay, because I'm going to use basic and housing allowance information in my current Fast Formula team. So I require the database item of the basic salary test SAD. This is our element, right team? This is our element. And which information I want? Amount field, because in the amount only I'm capturing the basic salary of the employee. ASG means assignment entry value. So this database item is going to store employee basic salary, what I captured in the system. Okay. Now I'm defaulting with 0. What I mean by defaulting? Now I'm going to use this database item in my Fast Formula logic team, like 25% of basic or 10% of basic is the transport allowance team. Unfortunately, when I'm running the payroll team, I added transport allowance element to the employee. Basic salary also added to the employee, but at the basic salary amount level, I have not given anything. It's a blank entry. Basic salary, my HR did a blank entry to the employee, not feeded any value. But this formula is fetching the information from basic, and it notices there is nothing, null. Then what it should do? It should process 0 in that place. So whatever the values you are defaulting to, whenever these DBA items are processing in the formula logic section, and if formula didn't notice any value with respect to employee in the system at those levels, by default, whatever we are defaulting here, it will be processed team. Okay, that is the point where first we have to default the database items and the input values which we are going to use in the formula section team. So if it is a number format type of DBA or input value, then you can go with 0 or whatever you want. If it is a character format, you can go with X, Y, whatever you want, you can do. If it is a date format type of DBA, then we have to default with some date, something like 1951-0101 or something. You can default with some date. Whatever you are using in the formula logic, you have to default. The statement should start like this: default for amount. This is one of the input value of the element, and pay value. This is one of the input value is 0, or default for basic salary test SAD amount assignment entry value is 0, or default for per legal employer name is X. So whatever I want to use, all DBA items and input values I am defaulting to. This is about default section. Next, we have to initialize the input statements. The second section will be input statements initializing. Whatever the inputs we have defaulted here, we have to initialize them. Means if you want to make use of them in the logic, you have to pass the command like this. Inputs are these two things, amount and pay value. And what is their format? Basically, we are going to capture in that the numbers, right? So that is what amount and pay value, which are of the format of number. So we have to initialize the input statements team. And then this alias statement is optional within the formula. You can use it or not, up to you. What is that team? See, this database item name is very lengthy team. Correct? Basic salary, test, SAD, amount, assignment, entry value, or this is our housing allowance, the DB item. Test, housing allowance, amount, assignment, entry value. It looks very lengthy. So when I'm going to write my logic team, I don't want to write that bigger DBA item name. I want to make it shorten something. So you can alias that particular DBA item with short name. See, you have to pass the command like this. Alias, what is that DBA? Basic salary, test SAT, amount, entry value as test BSA. See, short name. The alias name, proxy name to that one we can give team. Okay. So same for housing allowance also. For test housing allowance, amount, assignment, entry value, alias to test HA and give. So I made it crisp or short because in my logic, when I'm writing, I want to make use of this name scheme. So when you are alias that particular DB item, going forward in the formula logic team, in the place of basic salary or test housing allowance, you can use the short names, test BSA, test HA like that. That is about alias statements team. We have something here called, see, alias statements. See, some database items have long names. Use an alias statement to set up a shorter name to use within the formula. Like see, like per date of birth. Like this database item will store employee date of birth information team. Let's say if I'm going to, as of now, I'm not using that in formula. If let's say, if I have to use in my client requirement, then I can short it simply to DOB, or per marital status, simply marital status. I'm aliasing it to. Or person EIT, EFF business unit details, simply B underscore unit. So I can make the DB item short. I can make or I can give alias names to that one, dual name or the proxy name to that. Where in the next coming formula logic execution, in the place of that big name, I can use this short name T. That we will call it as aliasing the DBA items in the system. This is optional. If you don't want, you can just skip this one. You don't need to make alias. Directly, you can use the entire DB item name in your logic team, right? So database item defaulting, input statements initialization, and alias statements. 3 sections we have seen team. And then initializing the local variable. What do you mean by local variable team? Specific to this formula, we can initialize that one. What this formula is going to result. Finally, we have the result section at the bottom team that we call it as return section. What this formula is going to return. So just I'm writing it as L underscore value. So we have to initialize the local variable with by default with 0 or whatever, because we are going to execute this formula and we are going to return this L underscore value. So that local variables with respect to this particular formula, we have to use. Okay, we have to initialize them in the system. And then team, here our formula logic will start. Entire fast formula will be working on a if and else condition team. If here see, this is the logic. If employee legal employer is equal to SA legal entity, if and then clauses basically, then L underscore value, nothing but transport allowance, is equal to 10% of basic. Else, okay, else if employee legal employer, okay, is equal to global KSALE, then L underscore value is equal to 5% of basic and housing. So the entire fast formula logic will start with if the condition, then what is the value? Else, if not this condition, then what is the condition? Then what is the result? Entire logic will be between this if, then, and else condition. Okay. Whatever the logic you are going to write, the structure of the calculation logic of fast formula will be in the syntax of if, pass the condition, whatever is your client requirement, then what is the result? Else, if not that, what is the condition? Then what is the value of that criteria? Okay. So this particular fast formula will be in this particular syntax scheme. Now, if I go to the formula, my logic C, observe carefully. If I'm using what? Per legal employer name, because I want to get into the formula employee legal employer details. So this DBA item is going to store, okay, this DBA item is going to store employee legal employer details team. So what I'm writing the logic C here, if per legal employer name is equal to SA legal entity, then L underscore value is equal to, what is this test BSA? This is what our basic salary amount ASG entry value. At the assignment level, whatever is the basic salary that you are feeding in the amount input value of the employee, this DBA will store that information of the employee related to basic salary T. So I'm using that DBA item because my requirement is what? 10%, right? So I'm using test BSA divided by 12 because it is storing my entire annualized salary of the employee team. In our case of salary test, it is 1,80,000 we have given yearly value. So yearly value divided by 12, monthly it will come into 0.10. That is nothing but 10%. My logic is here. Whatever is my client expecting logic, my logic is here. 10% of basic team. Okay. 10% of basic team. Else, next condition. My client is asking for another condition for this legal entity people. See, else, if per legal employer name is equal to global KSA LE, then L underscore value is equal to test BSA plus test HA, means both HA. Basic plus housing, correct? I will get the yearly value of that one. Divided by 12, I will get monthly into 0.05%. That is what my requirement, 5% of basic and housing of the employee. I am using employees basic for this legal employer people. I am using employee basic plus housing for this global KSA legal entity people. That is what team. Finally, return section, return L underscore value. So the return section is what we are going to return from the formula logic team. So this is one of the sample formula with the requirement which I have given here team. In real time, it could be of any type of nature. So client to client, the payroll requirements or whatever the requirements will be differed team. But try to understand the structure of the formula, what are the components we are using in them, and how to write the logic. Majorly, database items and input values, they will only serve our purpose because our client conditions or requirements, first we have to identify. Let's say my client is telling, Kumar, people of this legal employer and people of this particular department, business unit, then they have this particular logic. Then initialize that also. Default the department database item or business unit database item or employee grade, whatever you want. First of all, you default which DBAs of the employee you are going to use in the logic. Default them. If any inputs of the element you are using, then initialize them. Any alias statements, you want to shorten the name of the DBA, you can shorten them. And local variable, whatever you are going to return finally, that you have to initialize and write the logic team. Starts with if, condition, then what is the value? Else, if that is not the criteria, what is the next condition? Then L underscore value is equal to this one. So this is what our fast formula structure looks like team. Let us try to use this formula team. What I am doing is, I'm going to our transport allowance SAD earnings. This is the element we created correctly. What I will do is I will try to go to edit, correct, and I will just replace it. I don't want all these things to show because the seeded formula will be very big. I don't want all these things. Simply I'm replacing with my custom formula team. Okay. And then I'm clicking on submit. Once you submit, you have to go to compile. Click on compile, click on OK, and then click on refresh. Till the time you see the status is completed team. See the compilation status completed. Here, many times, if you do a small error also, the formula will fail. One example I will show you. See. Now it is fine. Now simply I'm coming here, just to remove this closing bracket team. And I'm submitting. Compile. Okay. And then click on refresh. See what happened now? Formula failed. What it is telling? Line 69, syntax error at character position 1. Sometimes the error is also not appropriate team. So we'll get confused. So what is the issue team? Even a single bracket or any parenthesis, I mean, you can call it as whatever it is team. If you are not giving properly, the formula will fail, or any kind of wrong DBA names you are using, even then formula will fail. So anything that you are missing out of the formula structure, then the formula will ends up with error team. So try to be careful when you are working on the formula. Provide all the required information for executing or compiling team. Now click on refresh. Okay, now the compilation success. Now if you want, what I will do, I will go to our employee and I will try to tag this element team. What is that element? Transportation allowance SAD. What I will do, just I will give a blank element entry to the employee. From March 1st onwards, click on plus icon, element name. Okay, then I will go to search. This is the element. I'm tagging to the employee team, transport allowance. While I'm tagging, nothing I will give. So my HR even can go with this element automatic eligible also when the eligibility profile they're defining, because nothing they're going to capture at the element level, just a blank element entry. The formula is going to take care. See, transport allowance I added, nothing I have given manually. Now I will try to run the payroll of the employee and checkout team. Let me go to the payroll running screen. My client groups. My client groups. Then let me go to payroll. Okay, let me go to simplified quick pay. Then let me go to our person salary test and let us try to run the payroll. I think yesterday we ran till April month, I believe, because of some other transactions. Let us try to run for May month or whatever it is. Whether our element triggered or not. See, transport allowance triggered. Let's see what is the value it is going to output now. Let me go to submit. Okay, now come to earnings and checkout team. See, whether element, see team it processed. Transport allowance. What is transport allowance output? 1500. What is 1500? Basic salary test is what? 15,000 processed to the employee. Out of 15,000, 10% is what? 1500. See, did I given any value at the employee element level when I'm tagging? Nothing. I have given blank element entry. But when I run the payroll, the element processed a value with 1500. From where it is happening? At the element fast formula level, we have did the changes. Okay. See, employee is from this legal entity. Am I right or wrong? Let me go to employment screen. Check it out. See, employee legal employer is SA legal entity. Okay. Then value is equal to test BSA. What is test BSA? basic salary test SAD amount assignment entry value. What is that, team? When you go to element entries, what is the basic salary element tagged to the employee C? It is storing the annualized value, 1,80,000. So this database item is about this one, team. Basic salary test SAD amount ASG entry. That is about this value. So 1,80,000. Okay. I did what? 1,80,000 divided by 12. So 15,000 monthly into 0.10%. 0.10 means what? Obviously 10%, right? That is what resulted 1,500. Right, team? So this is the way you can customize the existing fast formula for the element team. Okay. Within the concept of fast formula, we can able to create our own custom formulas also, team. If not at this element level, let's say I want for my element input value validation, I want team. Then how can I can define? I cannot go with any existing formula at that time. Now I have to define the formula from scratch because I want to use that formula at the element input level. Then how, team? Click on plus icon. Okay. Then create the formula name, something like for what? For a test housing allowance input name. Clearly I'm giving whatever I want I can give, but I'm giving input value validation formula. Name of the formula you can give. And here, team, I'm telling, right, fast formula types. There are 120 plus formula types. Whatever the element level formula is there at the status processing rule, that is Oracle payroll. You can find even that one also here. See, Oracle payroll type. See, these are the different types of fast formulas we have, team. Absences, accrual, carryover, or auto indirect, batch loader, many types. So here you can find something called element input validation. If you want to use a formula to tag at this level, team, at the element, go to element screen, whatever the configuration of the element is there. Go to setup and maintenance. Let me go to element. Our element is what? Test housing allowance under Saudi LDG we created. So let's suppose if you go to our element team at the element input value level, let's say for this amount field, my client expecting the validation to take in place. Means what? In the front end, when I tag this element to the employee, HR can feed maximum in the amount field, something like 1,000 and maximum 10,000. Click on edit, correct. Here I have something called validation formula team. If I want a formula to be coming up here, from where I have to define the formula, team? At the fast formula level, you have to create under the type of element input validation. If you create a formula under the type of element input validation, team, then only in the system at the element input level validation, your formula will show in the drop down. Like that, team, in absence module, let's say I have a plan, team. I want to configure some plan. Let's say I'm going to a plan, any approval plan. I want it to be showing in the participation tab here. I'm going to write a formula for my enrollment rules. Here I want my formula, team, with my client requirement. Under which type I have to define? There is a designated type, something called global absence plan enrollment start date. See, if I search here from absences, global absence, this one, see, global absence plan enrollment start. If I define a formula under this type, then only it will show here. It will show here in the drop down. If I'm creating a formula under something called global absence duration or something like under element input validation, okay, if I'm creating under this type, it's of no use. It won't show here. So when you creating the fast formula, on which screen or for which particular object this formula you are going to use, Be clear on that one thing. For every object where we are going to use the fast formula, we have a designated type for everything team. So these are the types they are. We have to select the appropriate type, then only your formula will show. Many students used to be coming back and asking me, Kumar, I created a formula, but where I'm trying to assign, the formula is not showing. The only reason is you have created the formula under wrong type. So be clear when you creating the formula team. So if I want for my element input validation level, I want to have the validation for my element input value, then create under the type of element input validation team. Description, anything that you want to write, you can write about that one team. Okay. And then fast formulas are of two types. I mean, they can be created at two levels team. Either LDG specific, you want to have this formula only for your LDG, means what? Whatever the elements you create under your LDG, only for that element level input only you want to show that formula. For other LDGs you don't want, then create under your respective LDG thing. This formula will be visible or available to use only for the elements what you created under this LDG. If not, global level also I can define the formula. I am not giving anything. So this formula at every element input level in the system, it might be US payroll, UK, Canada, whatever that you go. This input validation formula will be visible at any element level T. So either you can create a formula at global level or with respective to your LDG, you can define. So here date obviously 1/1/1951, and then click on continue team. You will land upon the create fast formulas tab. So if you want to define a fast formula for any of your requirement, you can start writing the formula here too. So any DBA item you want to use, you can make use. Any functions you want to use, functions means what team? Like if you know the background of SQL, you can understand the functions means. If I go here, I can show you in the presentation. These are about the functions team. Like what are the expressions or the functions that we can use? Something called operators. We can call it as whatever it is team. Like functions can manipulate data like text format, number format, date, like get date, get number. A best example is something you have a formula here, sample formula I can show. These team. Let's say here I want to get some information from this DBA item called continuous service date. So something called I have to write get date. It's a function. In order to get date out of the DBA, I have to write that function. Like anything. This is if I want to get here to date between two particular dates I want to get, add months, whatever the functions you are going to use. You can search your functions also here. Majorly, we will use database item, anything that you don't know. But even for this also team, we have a standard document available here. I'm going to share to everyone. What are the static database items available in the system with respective to each module? And what are the dynamic database items? You can make use of them when you're creating team. Similarly, by today we have seen only from the point of element calculation team. Tomorrow I'm going to show you this element input validation formula. One of the formula I will show you. And then I will show you from the point of absences, how to define the absence plan by using a formula where we can maintain everything like monthly accrual, yearly accrual, carryover, ceiling, weighting, vesting, everything in the formula we can maintain. So that absence related formula we will see. And also from the point of eligibility profile, we can even use the fast formula in the eligibility profile also team. So that all more 3 to 4 types of formulas we will see in the tomorrow session team. I will be sharing these materials with respective to fast formula. We have a bunch of guide available basically. Like if you go to this one, approximately we have, this is with respective to absence. I think this one thing. We have close to 100 formulas team within absence and payroll. Different types of formulas which are already defined in the system with different requirements of different clients. You can make use of them in real time. When you are start working in the projects, you can make use of this. Already formulas for different requirements are configured team. So this is one of the sample formula for plan enrollment start date. See, this is a sample formula, returns the enrollment start date and enrolls into the plan after 1 year. This is one of the requirement for the client for the absence plan. Means what? After hiring, after 1 year, the plan should enroll. Then how to use that one? See, this is a logic, simple logic. So like that, for different real-time requirements that which usually clients come to us, we have prepared a document for all that formulas team. This also I will be sharing across to everyone. Make use of this formula guide even in your real-time working when you are going to work on the projects team. So coming to the questions part, okay, we'll use for multi-line comments, use for single line. It's not for a single line, you can use it for multi-lines also, Santosh. And if need to use pay value of basic instead amount, then how? Simple. If you can have, we also have a database item of pay value. How I have for amount, we also have for pay value. You can use that in the system. Search with basic salary, test SAD underscore pay value underscore ASG, or like whatever it is, you can execute that one. And do we need to use ASG run for pay value of base? For pay value, sorry, we don't need to use ASG because we are not maintaining that at the employee level. Because amount is something I'm capturing at the employee level when I'm tagging that one thing. But let's suppose if you're directly capturing the pay value at the employee level, you're adding the element and directly you're feeding the value rather than feeding here, you're feeding in the pay value. That point of time, you require to go with that ASDS. And then error messages in Fast Formula, you can write, you can print the error messages also. We have one sample to that one. I will share that to you. How to use the error message to be printing in the Fast Formula for different things. Like when, let's say I'm using a validation formula. What happens when in the front end employee feeding the value other than the criteria I'm specifying? An error message will come. You want a custom message to populate. How that to be printed? Probably tomorrow session I will show you that one. Okay. And then WSA and array. So to that extent, we are not covering Radhika, but keeping usually the functional point into the mind. We are not going into that deep level understanding of array database items or looping using the loops or calling the other formula into this formula. To that extent, we are not seeing that. Okay.
And Kumar, is it a case sensitive while writing a formula?
It's a case sensitive, yes. We have to be very clear or very conscious when writing that.
Only the statement should be in the uppercase, or
no, it's not meant by uppercase. I mean, it's sorry, what I'm telling you, it's like you're asking about case sensitive. No, it's not about a case sensitive. It is something, what I'm telling is, see, I'm using here small and here I'm using capital. It's not I mean case sensitive, but whenever you are writing or anything, you have to be very clear about the spell or whatever that you are missing or anything. That I want to make you clear actually. But it's not a case sensitive. You don't need to go with capital letters or small letters. Anything is fine. Either you go with cap or small, whatever it is. Okay.
because all statements are in cap letters, so that's the reason I asked.
No problem. One of the statements you have passed here with small. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I preferably usually follow caps lock. That's why I have created the formula also in that way. Okay. Okay, team, then let's conclude here for today. Let's join back tomorrow. Thank you everyone for joining, team. Thank you.